There are 11 sniper rifles in Mass Effect 3 that your squadmates can use, so which one is the best for them? This is something of a follow-up to my previous video, where I tested the effectiveness of the game's 17 assault rifles for your squad. I explained the specifics of testing in that video, so I'll just take the lazy option and put the link to that video into the description, as the testing here is pretty much identical, just replace the assault rifles with snipers. To summarize, I went through the Noveria fighter base mission with only my squadmates doing the majority of the damage and measured how long it took them to complete the mission. Every test was done with a level 5 variant of the weapon and used the high velocity barrel 4 and concentration mode 5. There is one exception though. Mass Effect 3 has a shield gain mechanic, where any overkill damage done to enemy shields will not carry over to their health, at least not on Insanity. This makes shielded enemies more of a nuisance to sniper rifles, since when compared to assault rifles, they generally trade fire rate for damage. As a result, I was a little more proactive with preventing enemy shields from recharging, especially on the single shot rifles. Your squadmates use most sniper rifles a bit differently than ARs, in that they seem to actively shoot through cover. This is most prevalent with the single shot sniper rifles, where they will keep up a relatively constant rate of fire even when the enemy is concealed, while ARs either fired above cover or didn't fire at all. I also noticed that sometimes your squaddies don't deal as much damage as you would expect, like the shot was just grazing the target. Nothing like this happened on my previous test. Every shot or burst dealt the expected damage. It occurred even when there was no cover between the weapon and the target that could decrease damage. After re-watching the footage, I think I figured out why. When the player fires most sniper rifles without using the scope, they get a damage penalty. I believe something like this can occur for your squadmates too. They do not seem to have a different animation when firing scoped or unscoped, but it most often occurs at close range, such as when you defend a squadmate on the computer. Anyway, onto the list. Unlike the Avenger, that managed to get a pretty decent spot for a starting weapon, the Mantis has no such luck. When compared to the other single-shot sniper rifles, the only advantage it has is the lower weight, that has no bearing on your squad's performance. It has no special gimmicks, and the damage is just low enough to not guarantee a one-hit kill, unless a lucky headshot is achieved. While it may be the worst performing sniper rifle, and statistically not very good, keep in mind that it does outperform more than half of the assault rifles, which I think goes to show how much more efficiently your squad can fight when they actively shoot through cover. The 10th spot belongs to the Indra, and since it is an automatic, low damage sniper rifle, it is used just like an assault rifle. Even with the penetrating mods, your squad seems to make no effort to shoot through cover, unlike as with the Mantis. The Indra also has one of the highest hipfire damage penalties, so enemies that got too close needed twice as many bursts to be put down. As you would probably expect of such a weapon, the Indra has the longest Atlas kill time, but if it is only used against unarmored targets that aren't too close, then it really isn't as bad as the low spot on the list would indicate. The 9th spot, the Kishock harpoon gun, is a weapon that can be charged for extra damage, but as seems to be the case with all chargeable weapons, your squadmates do not utilize this feature. It is a single shot weapon, like the Mantis, but the reload time is relatively fast, making the effective rate of fire higher than the other blow and load instruments. Another advantage to the Kishock is the bleed damage that prevents enemy shields from recharging. That gimmick, and the faster reload, would potentially make it the best single shot sniper rifle in the game, if it weren't for the fact that the shots cannot pierce cover. Despite that, your squadmates still act as if it does, which leads to a lot of wasted shots and the battlefield looking like grandmother's pincushion. I can see it being better in more open areas, but otherwise, the only thing truly impressive about the Kishock is how it sends your enemies flying on the killing shot. The semi-automatic Raptor is treated like a fully automatic weapon, and the fire rate is much higher than the player can achieve. This makes it very comparable to a mid-tier assault rifle, just like the Indra, but the Raptor's hipfire penalty isn't as severe, and per shot damage is higher as well. Add to that the lightning fast reload, and the weapon is quite capable of keeping enemies under constant fire. The Valiant is somewhere between the single shot rifles and the low damage ones. It fires a moderately powered shot and has a mag size of 3. Despite that, your squad doesn't make full use of the potential fire rate. It's kind of odd in that they don't return to cover after firing the first shot, but just continue aiming when they could be firing. The damage is just a smidge too short of being a 2-hit kill, and since it typically requires a full mag to kill someone, it is not all too dissimilar to a single shot rifle. At the end of the day, I expected more from the Valiant, especially since it is one of the most expensive weapons in the game. The Incisor has always struck me as one of the worst weapons in the game, so it being on the 6th spot was quite a pleasant surprise. It reliably kills basic troopers in 2 or 3 bursts that seem to have 1 or 2 extra shots to them. Helping the Incisor here as well is how the atrocious recoil that throws off the player's aim doesn't seem to affect your squad. All these factors combine to make it the best low damage sniper rifle for your team. I was a little worried about the Javelin. It's a weapon whose shots have to be charged to even fire, and weapons with charge mechanics often don't play well with squadmates. Those fears were unfounded. There didn't seem to be any issues in acquiring and eliminating the target. Not only is this the first weapon on the list that can reliably kill with a single body shot, it can also penetrate cover without the need of specific mods. Despite these advantages, the single shot nature of the weapon has some obvious limitations, so the Javelin sits firmly on the 5th spot. Just shy of the top 3 spots is the Black Widow, a weapon with damage comparable to the Mantis, but capable of firing 3 shots before reloading. If the target is out in the open, your squad will fire the weapon at its max fire rate, and if the enemy is behind cover, they will fire more slowly, but make full use of its innate penetration capabilities, which can force the target out of cover. Personally, I was surprised how comparable the Black Widow was to the single shot penetrating snipers, despite its larger margin of error. The gap between a 2-shot kill with the ability for a follow-up if one misses, to a straight 1-shot with a low rate of fire isn't as high as I perceived. I most certainly was not expecting the regular Widow to outperform its higher capacity counterpart, despite its superior damage. The Widow and the Javelin behave almost identically, sharing the same penetrative capabilities, and just about everything I said about the Javelin apply here as well. It would not be unprecedented if the 3 weapons I just covered would change their spots when redoing the tests. Their differences are more likely due to the irregular AI behavior than their raw stats. Just use whatever you think looks better for your squad. Perhaps the most surprising weapon on the list is the runner-up, the Humble Viper. The damage is at best average to low, but its capacity of 6 rounds and your squad's tendency to fire it at its max fire rate without wasting time in cover more than makes up for it. It is a bit like the Valiant, a 3-shot kill, but it actually makes full use of the fire cap to compensate for it. The damage penalty for hip firing also isn't very severe, and overall, the Viper just hits a great balance between the high damage rifles and the high fire rate ones. It is also one of the earliest weapons you can obtain, and completely for free. Just steal it from the Turians who need it more than you do. Our winner here is the Krysae, a sniper rifle with aspirations of becoming a rocket launcher. These explosive shots cannot pierce cover, so they will occasionally go to waste when your squad tries to wallbang someone. Unlike all the other sniper rifles, the Krysae did practically nothing against the Guardian when it assaulted from the front, requiring me to divert his attention for Garrus to take him down. It can also be a little difficult to keep track of the battlefield, as the constant explosions are very noticeable and obscure the target. That's a lot of flaws for one gun, but it still made it to the top of the list, which is a testament to the raw damage output of the Krysae. It also deals a bit of extra damage against armor, and is probably the best explosive weapon in the game for dealing with bosses. And the best part, it's a pretty cheap weapon that can be bought near the beginning of the game. I guess the most surprising part about the tests is the relatively low differences in times. Sniper rifles had a little over 6 minutes of difference between the best and the worst, while ARs had 16. The average Atlas kill times were also higher, but that is to be expected, given how their generally higher damage interacts better with armor. There isn't a sniper rifle that I would consider outright bad, like the Argus or the Facetone. Even the low ranking ones had something they did well in, like killing the Atlas or damaging basic enemies at range. On the other side of the spectrum though, there isn't a sniper rifle that is overpoweringly good, like the Typhoon. Hopefully, you are now better informed on squadmate sniper rifle use and find more enjoyment in the game.